Welcome to the Automation Village, the most popular automation show to watch on vacation. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Keith Donaldson. Some things coming up this hour.
Who really is an astronaut and who's just a billionaire?
A programmer peels back layers.
May the natural forces be with you.
Self-expression with EMC.
And two of you win prizes for participation.
This is the Automation Village.
All right, welcome everybody. We're here at the Automation Village in our brand new studio, and joining me today is our guest host, Keith Donaldson. How are you, Keith?
I'm doing great, thanks, Dave. Yeah, and I'm for Chris Little, who's on vacation this week, and it's my real pleasure to be here on the Automation Village. So, Dave, I understand that normally at this point you speak about what's going on Mars. So tell me, what's been happening this week?
Yeah, so I think the latest news on Mars is that the Perseverance rover is just about to drill some core samples to take a sample of the Martian soil and do some analysis on that. So despite being pretty groundbreaking news, I think the bigger news, Keith, is here on Earth.
Yeah, it's been a pretty exciting week for commercial space exploration and travel back here on Earth. It started at the beginning of the month with Sir Richard Branson, I should say, and his Virgin Galactic team, who managed to reach space using their Unity spacecraft. Now, there is a little bit of debate about whether he actually reached space, because the internationally recognized Kármán line is up at 100 kilometers, and Richard Branson and his team managed to get up to 85 kilometers. However, the US recognizes anything over 80 kilometers as being an astronaut, and they gain their wings. However, later this month, just a couple of days ago, in fact, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon and his Blue Origin company, also launched the New Shepard spacecraft, and it traveled up over the 100 kilometers line, returning back to Earth just some 11 minutes later. So a fantastic achievement. Of course, Elon Musk and SpaceX, probably worth giving them a mention too, down in South Texas, getting Starship ready to travel to Mars. So really some fascinating commercial space exploration.
Very, very cool. So before we get into the main part of the show today, we want to run through a few things, because we do have some contests. You have two chances to win a $100 gift card by a online store started by a recently acclaimed astronaut. To do that, you'll have to not work for Trihedral, not work for Delta Electronics, and not be featured on the show today. And you'll be sending an email to natasha.lutz@trihedral.com with the subject line having a code word that will appear some point throughout the show. And we'll get to that shortly. But right now, let's get into the beginning of our show.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump into, pass over to one of my colleagues, Joe, who is one of the programmers, software developers at VTScada, for some tips and tricks, easy for me to say, about VTScada.
Great.
Hi there, I'm Joseph Van de Kieft. I'm a developer with VTScada, and today I'm going to show you a little bit about the layers panel that we have in the Idea Studio. The Idea Studio is our ribbon-based environment for editing pages and widgets in VTScada. And one thing that I'm going to work with today is over on the right-hand side. When you have more than one item selected, you'll see that we get this layers selector open. And I'm going to show you how to make use of this and actually build a meter using the layers selector. So in VTScada, we do have a bunch of built-in meters. My favorite is actually the pressure meter. And these meters are ready to go right out of the box. But if you needed something a little bit more custom, I'm going to show you how to build one from scratch. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my tools section. I'm going to grab some meter parts, and I'm just going to start throwing them on the page. Doesn't matter if I get these exactly right where they should be. I'm going to use my alignment tools to get them where I need them in a moment. Make a circle as well. And that should be enough to get things started. With everything selected, you can see my layers selector actually shows up on the right-hand side. I'm going to use this now. Actually, first I'm going to align everything so that they're on top of one another. Ooh, align midpoints. And then I'm going to match the size so that my circle is the same size as everything else. Now you'll notice that my circle is actually on top of everything else, and that's not where I want it. I want the circle to be my background. So I'm going to come into my layer selector, and I'm just going to move it down into the bottom. Now you can see everything kind of popped up, and it's starting to look a little bit like a meter. So with everything selected again, I'm going to highlight my radial legend. That's the numbers that you see on the screen there. One thing that we can do from the layers panel is we can select something and say select only. So now that's the only thing selected, so I can actually resize that a little bit, make it smaller so that it pops up where I want it to be. And that's looking pretty good right there. Now again, I've got everything selected, so my layer selector came back up. I'm going to now right-click on my radial scale, which are the tick marks, and I can actually hit the properties of it right there. Rather than having to click and hope that I'm getting the right thing, we're now able to ensure that we have the right thing selected just by right-clicking it over in the layer selector. I'm going to change my number of major divisions to 10 and minor divisions to 5, just because I like the way that looks. I'm also going to change my colors to be white. Now you're seeing things are starting to really take shape here. I'm liking my circle in the background, but I'm not quite liking the color that it has to it. So I'm going to right-click in properties on my circle, my ellipse. I'm going to change the outline to none, because we don't really need an outline on it. And my fill color, I'm going to pick something that's a nice shade of blue. All right, from there, my radial legend, I'm now seeing that that black text is looking a little bit out of place. So I'm going to hit the properties on that. And from there, I should be able to change my color. I'll change that to white as well. And for the number of labels, I'm actually going to bump this up to 11. That'll give me every one of my major tick marks. Right there, we have something that's really starting to resemble a nice little meter. Again, I could select through and click on these items one by one, just try to guess what layer I'm on. Say, okay, that's the one that I wanted to select, and hit the properties for that. But it is so much easier to just, from the layer selector, to be able to right click and select properties there. Right now, I'm just going to change my meter's little indicator. Oh, widget parts, yeah. Now this one actually has an offset on it, so I'm actually going to change my offset until it looks like it's in the center. I'm going to do some advanced changing on this because I like a nice little red indicator, so I'm going to change my hue until it matches the red I like. All that, and we're done for the most part of things. We just want to put some dress up on it. We can go to meter parts in our images. I'm going to put some glass on it. Something that looks fancy. And maybe a nice little bezel just to finish things off. Feeling a little bit blingy today, so I'm going for the gold bezel. And there you go. You got something that on screen is actually going to look like a nice little meter. It's just a matter of, from this point, you'd probably want to group and create a new widget with everything. And that is a quick overview of the layer selector. So now, hopefully you'll be able to use it and create some really cool looking widgets. Back to you in the studio.
Time for Data Wave.
Well, thank you,
Pam,
David.
how are
Hey,
you?
Pam.
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Yeah, love the tips and tricks before this. To me, it is all about visualization and making it so everybody can see. So that was pretty cool. That was a nice segment. So for the data wave here for our roundtable today, several of us were talking, and for you guys, many of you guys know me, some of you don't, but it's really important. The things that we all do every day really makes a difference, whether we're on the private side, the public side. Everything we do really impacts our various industries. For me personally, it's absolutely the protection of public health and the water environment. But everyone, regardless of your industry, you guys, there's a lot of, some people use the word issues. I use the word challenges because challenges are just opportunities that we and everybody on this call are dealing with. And I was reading some stuff this week from one of our Danaher Water Quality Platform sister companies called Paul, and many of you know the Paul membranes. And it's a really big issue, particularly for me here in North Carolina in the Cape Fear River Basin. And many of you have heard of the big issues of PFOS and PFOS. It's a perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Many people nickname them the forever substances because they're around everywhere. And Paul was talking about a lot of their different membrane technologies they use to treat with. But I kept thinking, well, how do all of the folks, particularly here in the Cape Fear River Basin, actually detect that? Once you detect it, what do you do about it? Then it really brought on the bigger subject of what do we all need to do our jobs? That's really the bigger subjects. And once we get that data and good quality data, how do we then be able to make those decisions? And so we've talked a lot about doing the frustrations that are around, what are we doing, et cetera. And this brought us to our roundtable for today. So I'm happy to bring my cohorts on this new digital platform here into the sessions. Here we go into our new cool network here that Peter's working on. But Ian Mertzler here is with Dispel. Lee Kibler here from Riviera Utilities. And Pete Diffley, who's running the show and with us today. But our roundtable discussion, and what we thought we might do is do something a little bit different, is really break this into at least two segments. So this month's segment, as well as maybe continue it more detail into next month. But be looking for it because Natasha is going to put a survey for y'all. We want y'all's opinion and your input. So I think she's going to put it in chat. It's going to be on the forum. And we're going to meld our future discussions into this topic. So what do end users, what do y'all really want? And what frustrates us all in this process of getting to that data? So I'm going to hand it over to Lee because he's got some great comments to really do an overview of what our discussion is going to be. So Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. Yes, in order to define anything in life, you need to know what do you want in the end. And I think all of us in the utility business want reliable control of the processes. We want equipment that's designed for the environment that it's in. We really want reliable and secure communications that's segmented to protect the whole system. And it needs to have an extremely long life to take care of our ratepayers' dollars. It needs to be secure, easily accessible with remote diagnostics and operation, in order to enable remote diagnostics and operations of the equipment. We need different screens and accesses for operators versus engineers versus technicians. We really want no gaps in the data because usually gaps occur when we have bad weather. And so we don't want flat lines in our data. That's when we need to be able to look back in time and see what actually happened. We need to be able to fill in the missing data. Data that's not logged because we, as a utility, have to make decisions about the cost of storage. We need to be able to log more data, and we need to be able to keep the data that we need and get rid of the excess data. And all the documentation needs to match from the control panel to the local HMI to the remote HMI. Oh, by the way, all the little labels in the control panel, they need to stay on and not fall off the moment it gets a little warm. And what keeps us frustrated? The frustration is because of the varying number of specialized skills that are frankly of varying quality. We have IT people, we have OT people, we have SCADA, we have controls engineers, we have programmers, we have technicians, electricians, communication site survey people. Even making things even more difficult is you have Modbus, DNP3, OPC, MQTT, CIP, Ethernet IP, all these different protocols that you need to be able to select the proper one to meet your needs. And the life of our equipment can be 20 years. So we can't just very well rip things out and start over. We have to be able to integrate our system with the future technology and the older technologies with security in mind. And also, multiple softwares are required for all aspects of these things. And by the way, Windows end of lives, and we have to keep all those softwares up to date, and we have to keep current. So, Ian, when you hear all of this stuff, what does it bring to your mind?
To my mind, there are a few things. First of all, most vendors trying to service the OT are ones that came out of the IT community, and they're used to hearing a different problem set, which has a lifespan of about 3 years, maybe 5. And here we're hearing conversations about 20 years, instability in communication channels, a very diverse population in skill sets and needs trying to interface with something. And these are all materially different problem sets that need to be solved. They are entirely solved. That's what engineers wake up in the morning and do every day, including from a security standpoint and a resilience standpoint. I think thematically, most of these things fall under the header of edge compute, but also the concept of microclouds. So in other words, you have different layers of computers now that are starting to stack up inside of someone's institution, and each set of them needs to be able to work with the others so that you can have stability across a time frame that might include a storm, a hurricane, an earthquake. So the most important thing to take from all of this is, as long as you articulate that these are the things that you want solved, and preferably more people hop into Automation Village and list the things that they are really their frustrations, someone somewhere probably has an answer for it. It might not be the most perfected system just yet, but there are people who are working hard on these things to try and provide a coherent solution.
That's true. Peter, what's your perspective on this general overview?
Well, it's funny. Craig Stone, just in the chat there, he just put forward a comment which I would echo, and it's kind of a two-sided thing. He actually said frustrating when you know your SCADA software can do something, but you don't know how to do it. Well, I'd echo that, and like I said, it's really on two sides, because as a vendor, and we supply SCADA software, we're often kind of wondering, how is it that people don't know that the software can do certain things? Sometimes it's we'd say, well, it's fundamental. Of course, you must know it does it. But you realize that the layers of complexity that SCADA software, and I would say software in general, actually has, it even when you do stuff that makes it simple, we all kind of come into the our respective lives with and working lives with biases. So we sometimes think that it must be done this way. And for example, I'm using new software here for this show today, and did I bring biases? Absolutely. So I was trying to figure out all this stuff and go, God, I hope this all works. And I'm trying to kind of do a workflow, but my workflow is programmed to what I did before. So I would say the same to Craig with SCADA software. So first thing, reach out to the vendors and ask, what are you trying to achieve? Keep it simple. Say, I wanted to do this. Show me how. And you'd be surprised. Most vendors want to show you how.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. You don't know till you know it. When you're looking at any of this, and it's so true with any software, like in my world with data management, with all of our various solutions with WIMS, et cetera, coordinating with SCADA, coordinating with LIMS systems, coordinating with Power BI, and coordinating. You have to have a long range plan and discussion, but be able to be flexible and mobile. And it still comes down to me, like you were saying, Ian, what's the resilience? What's the sustainability? How do we train our people, and how do we pass on that knowledge when folks retire, when they go, to make sure we keep all that variety? Lee, you listed it, all the variety from electricians to everybody on that same plate with it. So as we come into this, I'll go back to Lee, into this subject. What is your ask of the folks on this forum, and what they want, what we're asking for them to do to help us plan these roundtables going forward? What would be your ask, Lee?
Well, knowing how to adapt our thinking processes going forward to keep our tool chest sharp. I mean, even knowing the proper contractors to even talk to build people, because I mean the varying quality level of the people that you're talking to in this industry is all over the place. I know when we just did our wastewater plant, we had some guys that were awesome, others that were abject failures, and so there is no directory of people that are keeping track of who is a quality vendor. The things that we can control internally are, involving people in forums like this, being able to know where to find the information, knowing who to talk to. And the forums like Automation Village offer us a utility, a place to go and to speak to people that have been there, done that.
No, and that's true. And I just got something from the New England, either AWWA or WEA. They're going to try a forum themselves for those in New England for information technology and asset management in November. So be looking for any of your professional organizations and forums like this where you guys can learn. Be proactive. Don't be reactive. Okay. Ian, what's your ask of these folks? Oh, you do. So if you're going to invest, keep it updated. Ian, what would be your ask to the group as we're moving forward?
I went and talked to the guys who run our design team, and they provided me with some pretty valuable feedback on exactly the language that you need to speak to a programmer in order to get the desired output. So most of the time, what a programmer desperately, a design lead definitely wants, is someone to come up and say, this is my day this is the day of my life. And if it's a plant manager, the thing that's often forgotten is to walk someone through the experience of teaching a subordinate individual how to use a system. Because there's a trend to make assumptions when you're trying to consolidate out your imagery all panels, so that way there's only the bare minimum. But that means that to a new individual, it's just, I give that one thing. The other thing that I'd hope for is ask for the things that are the things you genuinely want without the assumptions of cost put in place. For example, there's this classic concern that people have of, oh God, I've got to throw away my data. You can get 40 terabytes worth of storage that'll last for 40 years for about $200 these days. So some of these assumptions are changing rather rapidly. So it's important just to say, this is really what I want. This is what the day of my life is. And then that will give the community an opportunity to look at it and potentially call you up and say, yeah, I've got an answer for that.
Because you don't know, one of my frustrations is you don't know when you're going to need that data at some point. That's right. So yeah, pay for the storage and do it. Okay, Pete, let's go to you to wrap up here. What is your ask of this group as we go through on what do folks want, what frustrates people? What's your ask to this group?
Well, in a funny way, my ask is actually, would you be more to the vendors, and I'm including ourselves in that. So so the likes of Craig and everyone else can understand, how to get the most out of their software, out of their systems, hardware. And I'm saying this to all vendors as well. We collectively have to make it easier for people to understand, the key things that actually really move the needle. The whole thing of you want to move the needle. Well, to do that, we need to figure out ways to make it easier for people to consume data. So we're trying as hard as we can, but we always are going to try harder and harder. So we're trying to do that. And I think that using the Automation Village as a forum, we'll hopefully capture that feedback. So if you please do go onto that, onto the forum, and I think Natasha has it in the comments as well. Please go and take that survey as one part of it. There's free text to leave a comment if you want, and challenge all of us to figure out how can we better serve you. And I think once we do that, life will become easier in general.
No, I agree. I think we know, like with me, with Hawk and Aquatic Informatics, we call it a user experience, always getting that GIMBA, getting the input from our users, but we still come in with assumptions. So we have to be open-minded to that. So that's really for y'all that are on attending this live or going to look at it a recording. We certainly want your feedback as we're building this roundtable. So the survey is really trying to get a little bit on topics on what do you end users really want, what frustrates you. Then we're going to craft the next roundtable discussion to really focus on those things you guys have let us know about. So we really appreciate y'all going to that. And I believe it is time. So I'm going to thank my team. You guys, as always, are amazing. I learn something every day from everybody. And I think the new platform worked, which is even more amazing. So thank you guys. Wonderful. Yeah, fingers crossed. We will see you on the Data Wave next month. So thank you for doing the survey.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Joining us today for the Rocket Lander Challenge is Vincent Huang from Delta Electronics. How are you doing today, Vincent?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing very well. So, Vincent, we've been doing the practice. You've been improving really well, but you're yet to land the rocket. So you've got 3 attempts to land this rocket now, and we'll see if you can stick that landing. So anytime you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. Let me try first try.
All right. Vincent's consistently had an excellent trajectory on the way up. All right, I think this is good. This is looking like a nice descent. We'll keep that power on. Go full power. Full power. Oh, it's going to come in just
very
off
close.
To the side.
Yeah.
He's going to hit the side of the pad.
I don't know this.
There it is.
Very close. Yeah.
That was very close. That's the best one that we've seen so far. So, okay, a couple more attempts.
Okay. Okay.
Here we go. And the rocket's coming up overhead. Got lots of vertical speed, so he's going to get high up. And the way that the scoring works in this is it's a combination of the time it takes, the maximum altitude, and the fuel remaining. So a high approach can have a great score, but he has to be very efficient on the landing and the timing. All right, so he can come up full power.
Oh, yeah.
He comes always right on the edge of that. I think we're coming down too quick. Oh. Another very close attempt.
Yeah.
All right, 3rd attempt. We'll see. These have been excellent attempts. All right, so another solid launch. We'll see the rocket coming up overhead. Loads of vertical speed. Okay, so Vincent, you're going to have to look at the side there to see the orientation and the bearing. And we're waiting for the rocket. Here it comes. Go full throttle. Get that thing slowed down.
Oh, he's overshoot too much. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, as you came into that denser air, definitely caused a rud there with that rocket. So a big thank you to Vincent for those attempts and to Delta for letting Vincent try the Rocket Lander Challenge. If you'd like to try the Rocket Lander Challenge, just head over to the Automation Village forum, and in the contest section there, you'll see the area where you can request a chance.
Fantastic. And so now it's time for questions by Nat.
Hi,
Hey,
everyone.
Natasha.
Very happy to be back this month. I've got a great question, and it's what is historian deadbanding, and when should I configure it?
That's a great question. I'll take this one, Dave, if that's okay. So
Absolutely.
historian deadbanding, in VTScada, when you add an analog tag to a device driver to record some information, we will automatically store that information in our historian. After all, what's the point on monitoring a data point if you're not going to record it for later analysis? The problem with that is if you have a noisy signal, where you have a signal that's varying even by just a small amount, and that background noise will, of course, cause VTScada to log that data into the historian, and that will increase the size of the historian files. So we can apply something called the historian deadband, which I think by default is set to 0.25%, and that will ignore any change that's less than that level. And what that means is we can record the actual information that's meaningful coming from the sensor and essentially ignore the noise. It'll reduce the size of the historian data files and keep your system running efficiently. It only applies to analog data signals and not digital.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you have if you have questions for us, you can post them in the comments, in the chat. You can email me. You can put them anywhere on social media. I'll find them and we'll ask them live in August. Bye, guys.
Bye, Nat. So now we're going to head over to our next spotlight of natural forces.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's interview. Today we're going to be talking to Mike Morrow and Edson Dauntless Jr., both from Natural Forces. So, hey Mike, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. And hey Edson.
Hey Dave, how's it going?
Great. So Mike, I think we're going to start things off with you. You're the operations manager, so why don't you give us a bit of an overview of Natural Forces, kind of a little bit of history, and also a little bit of information about what your guys' goals are as a company.
Sure. First, thanks for having us. Natural Forces, so we're based out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. We're an independent power producer, which essentially means that we generate electricity. We're focused solely on renewable energy projects. And, you know, I'd say the purpose of our company is really to bring solutions to the climate emergency that we all face after we close out our pandemic emergency. So, you know, our history has really been focused on wind energy projects, solar projects, battery, microgrids, things like this. And our vision really is to partner with local communities or universities, corporations, First Nation communities across Canada to bring renewable energy projects, you know, to local communities owned by local communities. So yeah, our business model really has been partnership with, you know, community-based renewable energy.
Right, yeah, and that's where we kind of, we first met, was kind of getting into that project. And Edson, I think that's sort of where your role kind of really took off as well. So Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about that skid improvement project?
Sure. First, I wish we had a better name for it. Not a necessarily creative guy, but some sort of operation cool name. But so we came up with SCADA Improvement Project, which is we'll move on from there. So really, from my perspective, we've been operating our sites for a few years, and as we know, across the world, renewable energy is gaining momentum. And for us, I work in the operations department, so we take care of these projects once they're built and commissioned. And our projects are typically 20 to 30 years long. Working with my development colleagues and our management, we realized that we have a very steady stream of projects coming down the pipeline that we need to prepare for. So when we were operating, a low number of projects, having individual sites with their own SCADA plants was okay. But now as we get bigger and more global, we wanted to bring a bit more under one roof, essentially, for our SCADA systems. Another challenge we had is that, as these projects do get older, we have very limited data storage on each of these sites. So if you think about historically, whether it was a coal-fired facility or a nuclear power plant or something like this, all that generation is under one roof with one team and one server, and it's all in one premise. Whereas with us, with wind energy and solar and hydro projects, these are dispersed energy projects. So, we have projects in a relatively remote community in Labrador. We have projects out in northern BC, projects in Saskatchewan, all across Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. And most of these staffs don't have full-time team members on site. So, downloading data off a local PC was not really a good path forward for a long-term project. And then, because they're not manned or staffed full-time, you think about it, the event of we have weak internet at some of our sites. You think about a redundancy if, in case the local PC fails or the, various forms of internet that we have fail, we needed some backup redundancy there. And really, one thing we wanted was some in-house ability to configure and customize our projects. So, that led us down the developer route versus having to hire consultants to come in and do these things for us. And last, I would say, or probably most important, is the cybersecurity aspect of electrical generation and the electrical grid. In North America, the electrical grid was identified as one of the most vulnerable sectors to, hacking and ransomware attacks, probably even 10 years ago by, the federal government in Canada and the US. So there's a lot of standards and qualifications and certifications that we need to adhere to and strive to build towards in terms of cybersecurity. So that collection of little pieces all formed, the desire to move on with our creatively named SCADA improvement project. And that's where Edson came in, and he knew what our needs were, and really it was up to him to design a project and really build it for us. So I think he can get into the details a bit more than I can.
Right. Okay. So when you first started this project, did you have ambitions to, someday end up in the cloud, or were these kind of isolated projects that the stage 2 goal was sort of, okay, tie it together and scale it up?
Yeah, I think for us, our first vision was a local, like an in-house remote server. I think that was our first thought, was let's put a server in our IT room or in a remote location and move it towards there. But once Edson started this project, I think he came up with a very creative solution, and I believe something that our entire industry will start moving towards, which was a cloud-based server system. There's a ton of benefits, and I think I'll credit Edson with finding that for our project.
Right. Very cool. So Edson, I guess we'll flip over to you now, and why don't you tell us a little bit about implementing that, kind of going from those on-site servers to creating that cloud-based backup?
So for create the cloud-based backup, it's easy with VTScada because you just need to copy the VTScada that you have at the substation that you did a commission there. So in our example, we had 4 substations, and we had different kind of VTScadas with different versions. Okay, yeah. And when we start this project was a big challenge because, like Mike said, and the first project was keep everything in the IT room. We need the IT department, and we need server, switches, cables. And in IT equipments, it's quickly becomes outdated, And because we decide move on for cloud server, and we decide to move on for cloud server, it became more scalability, more easy to us because we just need a internet connection, and we can have everything in the cloud. We can have data storage, we can have the servers, and you can have more security, And when we decide to install the server, we research about the providers like Microsoft Azure, Amazon, Oracle. Yeah, and we decide to keep it in Microsoft Azure, and we start the project. We bought the license, and for it, a specific license for the cloud server. And I contact you, and you give me everything that we need, and we decide to install it. And we install the license, and we connect the VPN between the remote wind farm, and the cloud server. It becomes just one grid, one network connection. And the cloud server can share information with the local server, And everything can be shared, like license. If you have unlimited license in the substation, it can share it with the server. It's amazing. And the connection between the VTScada cloud server and VTScada local server, it's amazing because it's fast, and you can share everything quickly, and you can storage everything in the cloud. And for us, we don't have a physical server. We just have internet connection, and we can grab everything remotely, everywhere. It's an amazing project. And like Mike said, the improvement of automation in a lot of different companies, could be oil, gas, and water. Yeah, I think that in future, they will migrate to cloud servers because, like I said, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think for that dispersed architecture and also for your future scalability, I think you've got a really good solution right now. Where you guys are with it seems absolutely perfect for your place. And Mike, you've got a lot of projects up and coming. So we're really looking forward to learning more about that and kind of seeing you guys grow into those sites kind of through that Azure service. I know that through demos and other things, if we need to do a demo, we want to give somebody a very low latency service. It's Azure's the first place that I will go to, throw VTScada on a computer and say, well, here's an endpoint that you can hit and you can have a really good experience. So again, I can put one in Europe, I can put one in Australia, I can put one almost anywhere in the world, and be up and running in almost no time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I won't pretend to be a SCADA engineer or expert. Again, I'm more on the operations and maintenance side of our company, but one thing that we really strive for is redundancy in terms of communications and network outages, things like this. And for us, we have our PC on site, but again, if that fails or we have an issue with it, we have our cloud server. And the version that we went with was the dual server. So that gives us, again, another second and tertiary backup redundancy for our system. So for us, that helps me sleep a little bit better at nighttime, and knowing that if we have a failure of a PC on site or something like this, we have a secondary and tertiary backup. So it's a great system, and it really helps us move forward with the onslaught of new projects coming down the pipeline here.
Great. So I guess we're kind of running out of time here. So if anybody wanted to reach out to you, what would be a good way for somebody who's maybe interested in joining you on a project, or maybe they have a good idea, a nice location, somewhere that they think that would work well for you guys?
Sure. The first thing I would recommend is stopping by our website and understand some of the projects that we do and that we have done, and look what expertise we can bring to the table. Again, I believe there's dozens and dozens of renewable energy developers out there, but for us, our focus is really on partnering with local communities, and again, bringing that local ownership perspective to a project. So yeah, again, first stop would be our website to see some of our projects, and you can find contact information there as well.
Great. I want to thank you guys both for joining us today, and I hope You guys have a great day. I really appreciate you for joining us. All right, Keith, it's that time of the episode.
Absolutely. It's now time for our secret code phrase. And it's not very secret because we're just about to put it over on the screen for you now. The code phrase for our prize draw is renewable energy. That is renewable energy.
That's right. So you're going to send an email to... it's just an email to natasha.lutz@trihedral.com with the subject line renewable energy, exactly how you see it on the screen. It will not be interpreted by a human. It will be interpreted by the world's worst algorithm. So it has to be an exact match.
Excellent. And if you need to check out our terms and conditions below. So now we're going to get some more tips and tricks for VTScada.
Hi, my name is Sam Black. I'm a developer at Electric Machine Controls. We are a system integrator located in Trussville, Alabama, and I've been asked to share some VTScada tips and tricks. So one of the things I'd like to talk about is a way to build tag structures automatically. This is especially helpful when you are building out a plant from scratch, or you've got a new PLC that's getting added and for whatever reason you don't want to import tags. So let's just go right into it. So let's say you have a building called Pump Building, and we're going to call it West Side and Main Pump Building. Okay. And within that, you've got a couple pumps, oddly enough. So we're going to have pump 1 and pump number, let's call it big pump. And we're going to make another tag called small pump 2, smaller pump. Okay, so you've been tasked with making a whole bunch of tags to populate these pumps. So we're going to make a new child of pump 1, IO and calculations, the new super tag, and we're going to call this one running. So here's where I'd like to sort of jump in. If you're going to be making a ton of tags, you can type in pump 1, or like West Side pump 1, pump building, pump 1 running. And you can go into the IO and you can say West PLC dot pump 1 dot running. You can do this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, it is very slow. So I'm going to show you a way to do this automatically. So let's set this up. In your description field, you see this is green. It'll automatically fill in what you've already had. That's pretty cool, but not really what we're getting into today. So let's just blank that out. If you right click on description and go add parameter expression, there are some pretty cool things you can do in this window. So let's say, well, first of all, our most important tool is called concat, which is short for concatenate, open bracket. Next, we're going to concatenate. We need to decide what we want the description to be. So let's say it is West Side Pump Building Pump 1 running. So we're going to go ... and that's going to go up 1 level. So we're looking at pump building currently. Then we're going to go, actually, we're already there. So we're going to take pump, oh, you know what? Almost caught myself there. So we're making a child tag of pump 1. So up 1 level will be pump 1, up 2 levels will be pump building. So we're going to concat the area of that, and then add a comma here. And I like to do a new line here just so it's kind of easier to keep track of. We're going to add a space in quotation marks, and then we're going to say the description of the pump 1, and this is actually a gotcha here that they've recently changed since version 12 with multilingual support. If you're going to be referencing the description of a tag, you have to do \get phrase. This seems like a lot of work, but you'll be copy pasting this a bunch, so you really just have to do this one time. So after description, we're going to put another space. And then we're going to say the tag that we're on now. So we're just no ... we're just going to do short name. Close parentheses. And now you see when I hit OK, west side big pump running. So let's now do the address. Very similar here. Let's say that in the PLC, the address of this tag was pump of one, like pump array entry one dot running. So we're going to use a new expression here. So concat, our old friend, and we want to start with the name of the tag. So well, let's start with the parent. So we're going to go up a level, short name, nothing. All right, so right now we're just looking at pump one. We don't want it to say pump one. We want it to say pump bracket one. So what we're going to do is in pump one, we're going to replace any spaces with an open bracket. So that's another function called replace. And I can't remember the syntax on this, so I'm going to use another handy function, F1, and go to replace. So the thing, how long? Yep, okay. What's that? Yeah. All right, so we're going to do replace. The thing we're replacing in, how far into the word you want to start. So we're going to start at the first character. We're going to go for the whole thing. And we're going to replace any spaces with open brackets. And now when I hit OK, you can see we're pump of one. So let's, instead of nothing at the end, tack on a close bracket. So now we want to add dot running. And instead of doing, I could just do a comma running. Well, dot running. And again, that totally works, but you're going to have to change that every single time you make this tag, or a new tag rather. So let's go into edit, and we know that we want the dot, so we can do that. And instead of running, we're just going to take the short name of the tag that we're making. No change. Still works just fine. So why did we go to all that trouble? Let's say, you can see our address here is pump one running. Let's say we've got more tags in this pump. Let's call it up to, let's call it alarm. Oh, that's a protected one, fault. So we've got a new tag called fault, and you can see not only did our description automatically fill out, but our address did too. So as long as we're clever about picking names that are meaningful in the PLC, you can just make whatever tags you want. You won't even have to go into the configuration. And what's really cool is once you get all these filled out, you can just copy that, go over here to pump two, and look, it's pump two fault, pump two running, and it's pulled our description because we've done it here. And even better, let's say that you change out that pump, or you made a mistake and it's not the smaller pump, it's actually the really big pump. All these tags automatically filled themselves out. So it's a really good way to design your system where you can make a lot of changes quickly and you don't have to do a bunch of extra work.
Thanks, Sam. That's some really good time-saving tips there. Really excellent. So now it is time for our impromptu workstation competition, our photo competition, which we run on the Automation Village. And this month we have an absolute cracker that stood out a mile, and I guess it's because it's vacation time. And Natasha coined the phrase hashtag campervan commissioning. The winner was Dominic from Idaho, and as you can see, he has his workstation all set up there, working out the back of his camper van on site. So congratulations, Dominic, for that photo, and thanks everybody for sending in your photos of your impromptu workstations. We'll be running this again next month. So please do grab your photos of your impromptu setups when you're on site, you're commissioning, where you prop your laptop and your coffee. Get them through onto the forum. So that really brings us to the end of this session. I have a lot of thanks that I need to run through. So I'm going to say thank you to Pam Moss from Hawk, Lee Kibler from Riviera Utilities, Ian Schmertzler from Dispel, Vincent Hong from Delta Electronics, Mike Morrow and Edson Dantas Jr. from Natural Forces, Sam Black from EMC, and Joseph Van de Kief from VTScada. Thank you all. Nat, over to you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that if everybody enjoyed the tips and tricks that we had on this episode, you're definitely going to want to join us for VTScada Summerfest. We're going to be holding it August 31st. It is an online event. It is free. It's going to be the SCADA event of the summer. It's all VTScada, great tips and tricks. I will pop a link to the registration in the chat after this.
Fantastic. Pete, any last words?
Just remember to subscribe both in YouTube and also on our forum as well. So make sure you check that out. The link is in the YouTube channel as well. So have a look at that and hit subscribe all around.
Excellent. Dave?
Yeah, if you guys would download VTScada Lite, we'd really appreciate it. And I think you'd be doing yourselves a big favor, whether you're an end user, an operator, whatever it is. It allows you to get in, explore SCADA software, see some of the things that you can do with SCADA package, try some things on your own, and you can use this in an industrial setting for applications up to 50 I/O. So check it out. They say it's free, and I'm sure you'll love it.
And for me, I would be very grateful if you could tell a friend about the Automation Village. If you could like, subscribe, we're on across all of the different social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. So please like, subscribe, leave us a comment. If you've got a question, jump onto the Automation Forum and take part online there. So all that remains for me is to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month on August the 19th. Get the date in the diary and join us for the Automation Village.